Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Wednesday. It's January 15th. This will be our chart lesson for today. And again, it was just kind of up and down. It got really volatile again in the afternoon. There was two legs down here, and then we bounced real hard again. We actually traded up for the day. Um, this was the close from yesterday, the brown line. This is where we actually opened down, but by the end of the day, we closed up from yesterday's close, so we closed up again today. We're right at that 3,300 level, and that's going to be emotional. A lot of times prices will trade up or down or around that level for a while before they can move on. Those 100 or century levels are generally relatively emotional type price levels, so the market gets a little crazy around there. But we've got a little bit of volatility going on regardless, and you can see that some of these moves here are we get some really fast reversals and fast moves in both directions, and you got to be careful with those. If you get a good reversal pattern, they're great to catch these, but you didn't get a lot of reversal patterns on these today. So anyway, we'll talk about the trades. You had to be a little patient this morning. There's a lot of green trades in there, and there's even some more that I could mark green, but especially late in the afternoon. But you got to be careful late in the afternoon, because if you make a mistake late in the afternoon, you don't have time to make it up. If you make a mistake over here early in the morning, well, then you got most of the day to try to make it up, and it's not a big deal. But if you make a mistake late in the afternoon, so you have to be a little more choosy in the afternoon. The market seems to do a little more strange things in the afternoon than it does in the morning. That's just my personal opinion. I don't have any facts or figures to back that up, but just from watching, sitting here in front of it, watching it for 20 plus years, that's my opinion. That's my experience with it. So, but anyway, I'm going to back out. You can see the trend up, and then we trended back down. We didn't quite test the lows again, and then we trended. Then we I don't know if I'd even. That's a trend, but that's a more of a jump than it is a trend, really. Just like this jumped really high right here. So anyway, I'm going to back out. We'll go through the trades, and we'll wrap it up. The problem here, you could argue for some of these entries in here, because this is a fairly strong trend up through here, but we're not getting back to the EMA, and you've already had a break of this trend line, and you're making a new high already immediately right in here. So everything else up there becomes suspect if we continue higher. So the market's going to eventually come back. But what I would do, I mean, you could see this range early on. It's pretty clear to see. So measure that range and move it up here, and that's where I would look for my first target to be. And you can see we went a little high. We actually broke a little higher than that. That was where we went to before we corrected. But it took a little bit of congestion working sideways here to kind of finally work out the fact that prices were not going to get through that resistance level. And then it turned and we traded down, only to see again that big bounce at the end. So but we're still finding that resistance up here around 3,300, close to it. So but anyway, let's back out. We'll talk about the trades and we'll go from there. 7 o'clock comes right in here, right at this turn down. Notice you got a little trend working up here. You get a close out. You actually got some closes outside here, a new high. We basically made a double top, and then you double tested that original high right there. Generally, you want to wait on a lower high. I had this conversation, and we'll talk about it over here with this trade, but generally, you're almost always better off to wait on a lower high, just simply because you need some proof that the market is turning down. And even though we broke a little bit higher here, that actually probably trapped some people. This is still a double top, and that's basically like a lower high. And so I like going short right there. It's a little bit aggressive. Generally, you want to wait on the lower high, which comes down here. And by that time, we've moved a good bit, but you still got room to get out here. And so you may still take this trade. you just want to make sure you got room to get out before you reach these lows. And actually, I probably would have been playing this here at that point, so you don't have a lot of room in there. So your setup might be a little bit different, but just make sure you got enough room to scalp out before you get here, because you see it bounces pretty quick. So I ended up moving this lower before the day as we went on down here and made that double bottom across there. And so then we bounce, and then here you get a reversal pattern. This is what you want to see. We didn't actually break lower there, but you can see there's two legs up and then an additional attempt to go lower above the EMA. And on a range day, you would expect us to go higher here. So this is basically your high or low, and it does close right there at the EMA. So I like that one just to try to ride it back to the top. There's actually a failed second entry short here. Notice we're working up first entry, then you get another leg up, second entry, and it fails right there at those highs. It's always dangerous going long into those highs, but with a failure right there with this setup, you're probably going to trap some people that are trying to pick a top here. And this is what I want to talk about. I had a trader ask me, he went short here and he wanted to know, he says, hey, it looked like a good trade. He called it a failed second entry long, but there is no failed second entry long there. I mean, I don't know where you see a failed second entry long there, so you'd have to explain that one to me. I'm not even sure how you could semi-mistake that one. I mean, there's two legs up here, but these are full legs up. But the reason he liked this one was because it's a long way away from the EMA, which I agree with that. It is off of strong resistance, which I agree with that as well. But when you start trying to when you don't wait on a lower high, this is kind of what happens. It goes a few ticks lower and reverses and keeps going higher, just like it did here. And you can see how strong this move up is here. And if you compare that to this one, look how this move was. We're kind of jogging up and down. Then you get a break of the trend line and then a move to a new high. So at least your trend is played out here. Where here your trend line is still going. And this does look like an overshoot, but you can't even be sure that's an overshoot. It could be that that's just a midline right there. And I'm going to guess that's probably what this is a midline. And it's two-tiered. And so we might reverse right there. It's not very likely that we would reverse there, and I don't even know if I like going long there. It's one of those trades where if you get it right, it's going to pay off. And so being a little aggressive is probably okay there because it's going to trap some people as well, like I said, because a lot of people are going to play that move off that resistance, assuming it's going to back up to the EMA or at least to the trend line. And when it doesn't happen, and if it breaks higher here, you can see how it shot up real fast because that's because all these people that got short there had to exit. So you can tell you fooled a lot of people here. And they all had to exit, and that's why it shoots up real quick, and then it just starts jogging up slowly again. It's that surge of everybody that got short right here that says, oops, I screwed up, and they have to exit. It's because it's running their stops. And so hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, you could argue for this to be an aggressive entry, but it's going to fail. Well, you don't know that it's going to fail, but it does fail. And that's why it's aggressive, because you're taking a little bit more chance than you normally would. So hopefully that makes sense to you. Look at the difference between what happened over here and what happened here. And look at this big surge right here, surging up. There's a lot of buying coming in right there. And this is actually after 8:30 right here. And this is during the overnight as well, where you can, you don't have as many people. There's a lot of people jumping in and buying right here, and you don't know that things haven't changed from the 8:30 open to the overnight session over here. So that's another reason I like these to be closer together, or I like to see it do this in the overnight and then come back and test it again and make a lower high and then maybe go short. So I hope that's clear for anybody else that got fooled there. I mean, there's reasons to say, hey, I want to be aggressive right here, but you're going to get burned a lot on. You're going to lose sometimes on those. It's just like the bottom down here. I didn't mark this one. I probably should have at least made it green. It's the same thing. But the reason I don't even like this one is because you got two bars right here, and they're both very bullish. So I like that fact, but it's basically a two-bar matching high right there. this one would have went ahead and broke higher, you might have gone long on that one right there. So really that would be the one I would like. But when it doesn't, then you want to wait on your reversal pattern, which comes right here, or basically a higher low. You'd want to see a little double bottom here with a higher low that still has enough room to get out before this EMA, but you basically get a reversal pattern right there, and so you got room to get plenty of room to get out. So that's the difference in those setups. And then notice if you tried to pick a top on any of these, you just got burnt. And that's why you got to wait on a lower high. So you want some, basically what a lower high gives you off a high or a higher low off the low, it just gives you a little more evidence that the market's turning. So I hope that's clear. But anyway, again, you could have, there's some double tests and things here, but this is really sideways, and you know, you could, it is bouncing off a possible trend line here. Again, it looks like an overshoot, but it's probably a midline. And you can see that we still get a little overshoot, even if you look at that as a two-tiered channel, you're still getting an overshoot up there. Doesn't look nearly as severe now, but you're still getting one. And again, you want to wait on a lower high, and you don't get one down here until then you're going sideways with congestion, and then you actually get a second entry long. The only problem I have with that second entry long is that this trend is played out. This one we had a overshoot. Even if you look at it as a two-tiered channel, there's still an overshoot. So I still like entering there, but I'd probably wait on the higher low, which comes here. And you don't have a very good signal bar here, but you can look at this like a you tried to go lower multiple times here, and you get a double test and a failure and all that. This is not a very good signal bar, and there is still resistance here, but we're probably going to test this high. Generally, you don't, basically we're using this as your signal bar. Your stop still has to go below this bar. You got to be careful with inside bars, but in this case, with testing that low that many times and making a higher low here, if it breaks higher, we're probably going to retest that high. And so I like that one. It does run on up, and then you can't really get long here. And again, same thing, you got to be careful getting short. Wait on a lower high, and you don't ever get one. You keep making a little higher highs up through here. Finally, you get that last push up, but you don't get a lower high. So again, you don't get a chance to enter. You do bounce down here, but look at that trend, how strong that is. There's no break of it yet. Even though there's a double test here, this is another one you could probably argue for it to be green. One thing I would semi-like is it broke lower first, and if it would have went out the other side, I probably would have said go long there and made this blue. But it doesn't, and you get that little two-bar matching high. So in that case, you better wait on a higher low, which you get in here, but then you're going sideways. But notice you try to go lower. You make that low, you try to go lower once, you try to go lower twice. Look how bullish that bar is. I say now it's okay to go long. You did have this resistance here, but you can see clearly that would have moved up by this point. I would have at least probably moved it up to there. And you can see we were playing both sides of that from then on. So I like that one. And then notice you got your new low here, first entry, and then you try to go higher, and there's a second entry short there. Again, you got a little congestion right there, but you're still a little ways from the EMA, and you made that high. You test it once, you test it twice. Generally, I'd like that to be a little better bar, but we're probably coming back here, and that is a lower high. This one probably should be green. It's real close. But it is a second entry short. That is a fairly bearish bar. You kind of got inside bars right there. And then you got another real bearish bar right here. You would have been out of that pretty quick, even though it does bounce back some. So But I still like that just because of the double test and the second entry short and the fact that that bar is very bearish and we broke higher. Again, this is one where it broke higher. If it had went right out the other side, I'd probably say that needs to be blue, but it's real close. But I'm going to mark it green because it's not a great signal bar. You do get a little higher low here, but it doesn't break higher than anything else. And it is right off that trend line. But I would have rather seen something break higher there, so I'm not going to mark it. Notice you get a little close outside. You try to make a new low. It's tempting again to want to go long there. This looks a little like this does right here. It's almost a repeat pattern. It didn't make a lower low, but it is a second entry long after a sudden rush off the highs, and it is a higher low. So actually, I like it a little better than that one, and it is like almost a repeat pattern. But there's not a lot of room back to that EMA, and that concerns me. So you could argue for it to be green. Like I said, there's a bunch of them in here you could probably argue to be green, but you know, you just have to be careful on days like this. Just like we talked about yesterday, the market's just bouncing and turning quickly, and it's easy to get suckered into a trade like this and watch it fail on you. So you just have to be careful with it. But anyway, we run up. You do finally get a lower high right here. Second entry short, but not a very good signal bar. You could look at another second entry short. You could really count that as a double bottom and count that as a second entry short too, but again, not a very good signal bar. Then it tries to go higher again, but you could treat this one like a failed second entry long. If it fails there, plus you get a double test, if it fails there, we're probably going lower, and you can see the smart traders all come in right there, and the bottom falls out of it. So that was, by being patient here, you get this set up. And of course we run down, and then we just start working sideways back over to the trend line again. But this is a clear range right in here, and you made that high, you came back, you tested it once, you tested it again, and you also get a second entry short. And you look at that low, first entry and then second entry, and a nice bearish bar right at the EMA, right at the midline. I like going short there. Then it comes back again, gives you the same thing. It actually ticks higher there, and so it gives you a little bit of a trap. You still got room to get out, so I like going long again. Then it comes back again, and notice your entry is actually one tick below that bar because it's higher low than that one, but your stop again has to go above this bar, above those 3-bar matching highs. But this is a second entry short here too. First entry and then second entry. Even though it didn't break higher, there's still a second entry short, and it's right off the key entry point. It's right off that strong resistance. You got plenty of room, so I like it too. Again, your stop has to go above those 3, but this is really your trigger right here. And then you get a failed break on both of these, and both of these are tempting. This is just an inside bar, so I'm not liking that one. I'd want to wait on a higher low. This one, again, you probably want to wait on a higher low because we're not at the bottom yet. We haven't touched the low side. You still got a shorter term trend line working straight down right there. So this one's a little aggressive, and you just don't get a higher low. And the trend is actually down too, so you're counter trend trading here. So it's really more important that even though you're playing a little bit of range rolls here, you really need to wait on a higher low that says we're going back and you got room to go back someplace. You know, you don't want to take a higher low right into the EMA and that trend line because it could turn straight back down. You don't expect it to do this, but it does it. Irregardless of whether you're expecting it or not, you got to go with what the price action gives you. But our rules tell you that that's not likely to happen, and most of the time you'd probably get burned trying to buy down in here. And you make a little double top right there, but look at all those matching lows. It's the same thing. You really want to wait on a lower high, which comes right here. It's right into the EMA, which is not that big of a problem when you can kind of see that trend line working down, but the key here is it's not a great signal bar and it's really late in the day. You could argue again for that one to be green. And if it wasn't late in the day, I might even make it red. But being that late in the day, I'm not crazy about that entry. Because like I said, if you get one wrong late in the day, you're in trouble. And you're not going to have time to make it up. But this turns out to be a great trade too. So it might have been worth taking that trade. Actually, I meant to make that green, not red. Because it is a little aggressive, just because of the time of day and all that. You can see if you caught that, you catch a runner and you can ride that all the way down. But that takes you into the 2 o'clock hour. And I didn't see anything else after that. So, a little better than yesterday. Somebody made a comment that yesterday was easy for them. That's great, but for most people, that's not going to be an easy day. But you're right. If you just follow the rules a lot of times, draw your trend lines, stay with them. And, you know, that's half the battle right there, if you just follow the rules. So, anyway, not as hard as yesterday. It looked like we were going to get stuck in this range up here for a little while, but we ended up moving on out of it. And there were some pretty good trades after lunch here, or, you know, through lunch period here today for a change. So a lot of times it gets really quiet, which actually I would call that kind of getting quiet and sideways. It's like everybody's trading here. Noontime comes, they go to lunch. About 1 o'clock comes and then it bounces. So, you know, is that what really happened? I don't know, but that's kind of what it looks like. So it doesn't really matter. But that's kind of what it looks like. It looks like everybody stepped out for lunch, and then the traders come back in and off the market goes again. So anyway, it's interesting to look at things like that and think about it. Again, it doesn't matter. We're following the price action, and it's price action is never wrong. We may read it wrong occasionally, but the price action is never wrong. So just stick with the price action. Yeah, you still may make a mistake and read it improperly, but the longer you do this, the better you'll get and the fewer mistakes you'll make. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow, wrap up our week. But I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.